As you can see, this ballot book, it's big. Can you see that? Page 2, 3, 4. Let's do this. First up, presidential election. Let's just skip this part. Wow, it's already getting hot in here. Let's get into the state ballots. We got Proposition 51 right here. Originally pitched by state lawmakers as a way to help local schools, it authorized $9 billion in bond debt, bankrolled by the construction industry. Jerry Brown calls it a blunderbuss effort that would allow wealthy districts to cut in line before low-income communities, enriches developers. They'll build a football stadium and they won't actually improve the classrooms. They'll spend a lot of money without actually improving the school. I'm going no on this one. So Prop 52, a measure to fund Medi-Cal, backed by the California Hospital Association, would make permanent a hospital quality assurance fee, which is a fee that's been collected since 2009. It's about $145 to $168 a day. So hospitals send these fees quarterly to the state, and the federal government matches some of this money and sends it back to the hospitals, so they get more fees than they paid out. It's a way of helping Medicaid, Medi-Cal pay for the low-income patients that they serve. There's very little opposition to this. And then there's the Nurses Association, which hasn't really taken a stand on it. Some nurse practitioners feel there's not a lot of oversight on this and that the money could be funneled into the wrong places. It seems to be a way of helping bring in more federal funds, so I'm going to vote yes. Proposition 53 would require voter approval of any state project seeking $2 billion or more in revenue bonds. Prop 53 could bring big projects to a halt. That's the headline in the San Francisco Chronicle. So its intent is to rein in government spending. I want these big projects to happen, and so I don't want to prevent it by requiring a state vote on all of them. Proposition 54 stops the legislator from passing any bill until it has been in print and published on the internet for at least 72 hours before the vote. The pro is that we can see the footage and no one is surprised. The con is that if you are making a deal at the last minute saying, hey, we need to add this to the bill and we'll vote for it and we'll get it done, I value that transparency more than the last minute deal making, and I'm going to vote for this one. All right, if you know me, you know I love a salad. We're on page 2 now, 4 pages. Let's make this more fun. Prop 55, tax extension to fund education and healthcare. Extends the additional 1% to 3% taxes on the wealthiest taxpayers, those making over about $250,000. Here's the deal. Proposition 30 was passed a few years ago. Governor Jerry Brown pitched it to everybody. He said it was temporary. And so he doesn't want to take a position on this because he doesn't want people to think, oh, I do this temporary tax increase and now it's permanent. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of organized opposition to it. And surprisingly enough, a poll even found that support from a majority of those making more than $100,000 a year. So those opposing it say that there's the possibility that people may move out of the state because taxes are so high in California. But in my opinion, this 1% to 3% additional taxes in California isn't going to be the reason you're going to move out of the state. The final 1% of the highest tax rate goes towards mental health funds that has recently been retooled to pay for a $2 billion bond to help house the homeless. I'm very supportive of this stuff and I want to see the funding go to that, so I'm going to vote yes on this. Proposition 56, cigarette tax to fund healthcare, tobacco use prevention, research, and law enforcement. Kind of interesting article in the Idlewild Town Crier. Will increase cigarette tax and include electronic brands. So I just read through it. At the bottom it says, supporters include the American Democratic Party's opponents are Philip Morris USA and R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company. I'm voting yes. Proposition 57, criminal sentences, parole, juvenile criminal proceedings, and sentencing initiative make it so that any prosecutor who wants the juvenile defendant to be judged as an adult would have to make an argument to the judge, and the judge would have the final say in the matter. Second, it would make some inmates eligible for parole once they've served the base portion of their term. Opponents call this early release, and they're basically correct, but what it does is it allows an inmate who tries to be better and gets credits for being better and can get out earlier, and so I'm gonna support this one. Up next, we got Prop 58. If you vote yes on this, it would end the ban on bilingual education. I'm gonna vote no on this. My personal experiences with living abroad, living with a family in Belgium for a few years, and being fully immersed in the culture I feel that that's utterly important for learning a foreign language and for integrating into a new country, including going to school in that new language. So I know a lot of people have different views on this, but that's my view, and I'm going with no. Prop 59 is about Citizens United. Because there is such a high bar for revoking Citizens United, state legislators took it to the ballot to ask for the blessing of California's electorate to work towards overturning Citizens United at a federal level. It's just too much money in politics of that kind, and that this would be a good measure. Let's do it. It's just an advisory measure, so who cares really? All right, here's where it gets fun. Proposition 60. If children are watching this, please fast forward. This would require adult film performers to use condoms during the filming of sexual intercourse. Apparently this is already a law in LA, and what it's done is it just made it go underground. Maybe they film it in LA, but they don't let anyone know. And there's already a lot of testing in pornography apparently, and so I'm gonna vote no. It just seems a little invasive. Proposition 61. State prescription drug purchases pricing standards require that the state of California pay no more than the VA, that the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs, does for their drug purchases. This would apply when the state directly purchases drugs, as it does for prison inmates, and also when the state is the ultimate payer for those drugs, such as when it reimburses pharmacies for medicine provided to Californians who are covered under certain state programs. The VA generally gets the best prices. They're a big national organization, and they negotiate and they purchase large volumes. If California says, hey, we're not going to pay any more than the VA, then maybe these drug companies will raise their prices to the VA. I don't know if that'll happen. Maybe if they do, maybe we'll pay a little less and they'll pay a little more. Pharmaceuticals companies are the ones that are generally opposed to this, and most other people are for it. I'm going to vote yes. Double whammy here. We've got Proposition 62, which, if you vote yes, would eliminate the death penalty in California. And we've got Proposition 66 on the next page, which would make it easier to put somebody and quicker to put somebody to death after they've been convicted. I'm just going to vote yes on 62 because the death penalty can be really messy. Like, people can get unjustly convicted. Juries aren't always accurate. Yes, evidence is getting better these days, but mistakes get made. It's actually, I think, cheaper just to leave somebody in prison their whole life than to even put them to death. It's a very expensive and complicated process. So going yes on 62. Page 3. Prop 64 legalizes marijuana in California. I know that there are a lot of people who say that maybe this isn't the best measure, but it legalizes marijuana in California. When I was growing up, this is something that I never, ever thought I would see. Marijuana doesn't really seem that dangerous. I think tobacco is more annoying than marijuana. So I'm going to vote yes on this. I'm sure the law will probably be modified again in the future, but it seems like a good step in what I consider the right direction. So Proposition 67 and 65 are related. Proposition 67 bans the single-use plastic bags in, big stores. Proposition 65 redirects money collected when you sell like a paper bag for 10 cents or whatever it might be to a special fund going to environmental causes. I'm going to vote yes on both of these. I'm a big opponent of plastic bags. I hate them. I know they're sometimes nice to reuse to put your dog poop in, but you can get plastic bags in other ways. Use your damn reusable bags and we'll be fine. For the city ballot measures, we turn to the ultimate guide, the voice of San Diego's ballot measure guide. Decisions. Measure A, the Sandag tax. So basically this increases sales tax like 0.5% for like 40 years to collect an estimated of about $18 billion. 42% would go towards public transportation, 14% to highway improvements, 30% to individual cities to spend on local infrastructure, 11% to open space, and 3% to walking and biking. Those who oppose it say that we have underinvested in public transportation for decades and decades, and yes, 42% go to public transportation, but that's not enough. And I tend to agree with them. There's a lot of trolley lines and bus service that is not so good. Nothing going to the airport. Vote no on this. That gives the power to those advocating for more public transportation to really go back to Sandag and say, hey, yeah, we'll be for this next time. Let's put this on the ballot in a couple years. We'll be for it, we'll support you, but we want 60% spending on public transportation or some number that actually gets us to a city that's awesome to live in, instead of sitting in traffic all the time. Up next, Lilac Hills, Measure B. Somewhere up in North County, a development company wanted to build 1,700 homes near Valley Center. They got denied by the planning boards or government up there, and they're like, hey, screw them, let's put it on the ballot. They got all the signatures needed, they put it on the ballot, and they're basically trying to go around that planning board by going straight to the voters. I'm going to vote against it because I enjoy living in a city with more density. I think it's more efficient, things are closer together. Sprawl just goes into open spaces, creates more traffic. And I know we need more housing in San Diego, but I think where we need to put it is right in my neighborhood, next door to me. Measure C, the Chargers. This one's going to be exciting. No, that's pretty much it. All right, on to the next one. All right, Measure D is pretty complicated. Facilities and Tourism Tax Initiative. 15.5% tax when you stay in a hotel. Some larger cities have like 17%. Mission Valley, yes to the river parks. Yes, tourism and resident access to the bay. Stop taxpayer funds for Stadium Arena. Center expansion, yes, but stop the blank check. So I'm gonna vote yes on it because it seems to be a reasonable plan. It's also supported by some people I respect, like Donna Fry, David Alvarez, Marty Block. Measure E, they might as well just call this the Filner Law, but makes it easier to remove city officials if they've been convicted of doing something wrong. And going with yes. All right, let's move on. Measure F, give job security to deputy district attorneys. I guess there's a lot of turnover with district attorneys. A few years ago, there are about 150 of them. They can be fired during their probationary period, which is the first 2 years currently, for no cause, and they want to reduce that to 1 year. I think they want to prevent politics from influencing the city attorney's office. So I'm going to vote yes on that one. There doesn't seem to be any opposition to it. If it were bad, there'd probably be some opposition to it. All right, so on to Measure G. Measure G changes the Citizens Review Board, makes it stronger so that they can investigate police practices in the city more effectively. I think given nationwide this lack of trust in the police, this is a good thing. Hopefully it will bring more trust to the police of San Diego if they have more oversight. So I'm going to vote yes. All right, Measure H, charter amendment regarding purchasing and contracting process for the city of San Diego. So basically city staff requested this change. There's no opposition to it. It says the amendments would require contracts for public works, goods, services, and consultants to be awarded through a competitive process in accordance with the rules adopted by the City Council. Nobody opposes this. I'm voting for it. Did you know there was a high school in Balboa Park? Well, Measure I would extend the lease on this high school that's in Balboa Park. It's next to the zoo, so it doesn't necessarily feel like it's in the park. This measure would extend the lease on it so they could stay there. We're all in this together, right? It's a good spot for the school. Let's keep it there. And I'm going to vote yes. All right, Measure J, money for Mission Bay and other parks. Basically, Mission Bay has a lot of properties, a lot of lease revenues coming in, and that money currently basically gets spent on Mission Bay parks. And we got all these other parks in San Diego, especially Balboa Park, that don't seem to have enough money. And this measure would allow that money to be redistributed in other ways. So I'm going to vote yes on that. I think our other parks need a share of that money. Now we've got measures K and L, and they're very related. Basically, Measure K says that if you are running for city council or any of the local offices, that if you get more than 50% of the vote, you become the elected official. But if this measure passes, that then you would go to the November runoff, and the second highest vote getting candidate, you two would run off, and then whoever wins would win. And the Measure L says that if you have a voter referendum, that would automatically get placed on the November ballot and not the June ballot because more people vote in November. So both of these measures, the goal is to have the greatest number of voters vote on the elected officials, vote on the ballot initiatives, so that they can have the most legitimacy and represent the voters' desires the best. So I'm going to vote yes on these. Up next, Measure M. State law requires that voters approve any homes that are developed by public agencies. And so what this does is it authorizes San Diego to develop up to 38,680 homes. It's a funny number, but they calculated it based on what they estimate the supply needs to be by 2020 plus the current number that they have authorized. So that's how they got the number, and we need a lot of rent-controlled homes. We have a very high cost of living. This will help alleviate some of the problems for low-income individuals so that we can have a better mix in our society, and I'm all for it. So Measure N would levy a 5% sales tax on marijuana in the city of San Diego if the state law passes and it becomes legal. So there's already going to be a 15% sales tax statewide, but this 5% is to cover city costs associated with managing the additional costs of marijuana being legal, like code enforcement, meaning that you can't just sell pot anywhere, public safety, maybe policing. There have been warnings against setting a tax that's too high, because if the tax is too high, then people could avoid doing it legally and just avoid the tax. But based on the experience in Colorado, this is the percentage that they've felt would be acceptable and could work. So I'm going to vote yes on this. Oh my God, we're done. That was ridiculous. We're done. I still have a few things I need to fill in. You know, these school boards, you know, maybe you can convince me in the next week or two that I'm wrong on half of these ideas. But let's do it.